I was sitting in my home office on a Tuesday afternoon, reviewing financial documents spread across my desk, when my phone buzzed. The text was from my son, Brandon. I picked up the phone, expecting maybe a thank you or an update about his new house. Instead, I read 7 words that made my blood run cold. Dad, this cruise is just for the 3 of us. You're too old. I stared at the screen, reading it again and again, hoping Id misunderstood. This was the same son Id helped secure a $430,000 mortgage just 6 months earlier by putting my retirement savings and perfect credit on the line. The cruise was supposed to be our family celebration. Now he was uninviting me. My hands started trembling as reality sank in. 6 months had passed since Id made what I thought was the right decision. My name is Frederick, and at 67 years old, Id spent 4 decades building a spotless credit score and modest savings. When Brandon came to my 3-bedroom ranch house in our quiet Ohio suburb with his wife Stephanie, I welcomed them with open arms. They sat at my kitchen table, the same table where my late wife Martha and I had shared thousands of meals, and explained their situation. Brandon was 32, working as a freelance marketing consultant. His income fluctuated wildly from month to month. Some months had bring in $8,000. Other months, barely $3,000. Stephanie worked as a dental hygienist, earning around $45,000 a year. Together, they'd found what they called their dream home in an upscale neighborhood across town. The price tag was $430,000. Without a co-signer, no bank would approve their loan application. My son looked at me with those same eyes Id gazed into when he was a baby. When Martha and I had rocked him to sleep. When Wed celebrated his first steps and his high school graduation. He told me this house would be perfect for raising my granddaughter Chloe, who was 7 years old and the light of my life. He promised that having this home would bring our family closer together. He painted a picture of Sunday dinners, holidays spent together, and me being an integral part of Chloe's childhood. Martha had died 3 years earlier, after a brutal fight with cancer. Those final months had drained our savings and left me alone in a house full of memories. Brandon knew how much I missed having family around. He knew exactly what strings to pull. When I hesitated, pointing out that co-signing meant Id be equally responsible for a debt larger than anything Id ever imagined, Brandon leaned forward and played his trump card. Mom would have wanted us to be close, he said softly. Don't you want to be part of Chloe's life? Don't you want to see your granddaughter grow up? I signed the papers 3 days later, at the bank. The loan officer, Patricia, had asked me twice if I understood the commitment. Id nodded confidently, believing in my son's promises. My retirement fund became collateral. My perfect credit score became the foundation for Brandon's new life. The first month after they moved in, I visited twice. Both times felt awkward. Their new house was beautiful, with 4 bedrooms, a huge backyard, and gleaming hardwood floors throughout. But I felt like an intruder. Stephanie made comments about my outdated views on child rearing. She'd roll her eyes when I suggested Chloe might enjoy activities Martha and I had done with Brandon. Brandon himself seemed distracted, always checking his phone, cutting our conversations short. By month 3, the invitations stopped coming. I'd call and suggest visiting, and Brandon would say they were busy. Stephanie had playdates scheduled. They had errands to run. Always something. I started working part-time at Carson's hardware store, not because I needed the money, but because the empty house was suffocating me. At least at work, people appreciated my presence. 3 weeks before that terrible text message, Brandon had called me sounding excited. Dad, we're planning a family cruise to the Caribbean. 2 weeks from now. It'll be amazing. We should all go celebrate the new house. Id felt a surge of hope. Finally, my son wanted to spend time with me. I booked time off from the hardware store. I bought new clothes, including a ridiculous Hawaiian shirt I thought Chloe would find funny. I researched shore excursions, finding a dolphin encounter I knew she'd love. I withdrew $1,500 from my account to cover expenses during the trip. Then came that text message, and everything I thought I understood about my relationship with my son crumbled. I didn't respond to the text immediately. Instead, I called him. He answered on the 4th ring, his voice casual. Hey, Dad. Did you get my message? Brandon. I don't understand. You invited me on this cruise. I've already taken time off work. I bought clothes. What's going on? His tone shifted, becoming cooler. Dad, you're 67 years old. This is a couples and kids cruise. You just slow us down. We want to do activities, go to clubs at night, have fun. Besides, Stephanie thinks it's weird having you around all the time. The words hit me like physical blows. I'm around all the time? I've seen you twice in 6 months. Look, don't make this a big deal. We're grateful for your help with the house, obviously. But we need our space. Surely you can understand that. What about your promises, Brandon? What about being part of Chloe's life? What about family dinners and holidays? He laughed. Actually laughed. Dad, that was a business arrangement. Don't make it so emotional. We needed a co-signer. You helped out. And we appreciate it. But that doesn't mean we owe you constant access to our lives. I felt something break inside me. A business arrangement. Exactly. Now I've got to go. Stephanie's calling me. Well, talk later. The line went dead. I sat in my office for an hour, staring at the mortgage documents still spread across my desk. My hands shook as I picked up the papers. I read through them carefully, something I should have done more thoroughly 6 months ago. And that's when I noticed a section I'd glossed over before. Co-signer rights and removal procedures. A small spark of something flickered in my chest. Not quite hope, not quite anger, something in between. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I lay in the bed I'd shared with Martha for 41 years and stared at the ceiling. Her voice echoed in my memory, something Shed said repeatedly during our marriage. Never let people mistake your kindness for weakness, Fred. At the time, I'd thought she was talking about pushy salespeople or difficult customers at the bookstore where Shed worked. Now, I understood Shed been teaching me a life lesson I'd failed to learn. Morning light filtered through the curtains at 6:30. I dressed carefully, putting on the slacks and button-down shirt I wore to important occasions. At 8 o'clock, when the bank opened, I was waiting in the parking lot. Patricia, the loan officer who'd processed Brandon's mortgage, arrived at 8:15. She recognized me immediately and smiled. Frederick, how are you? How's Brandon enjoying the new house? That's actually what I need to talk to you about. Do you have time this morning? Her smile faded as she caught my tone. Of course. Come to my office. 20 minutes later, Patricia had reviewed every document related to the mortgage. She explained things I hadn't fully grasped when I'd signed. As a co-signer, I had legal rights, but also complete liability. If Brandon missed a single payment, the bank would come after me first because my credit was better. If he defaulted entirely, I'd lose everything I'd put up as collateral. Patricia, can I remove myself as co-signer? She set down her pen and looked at me carefully. Technically, yes, but it's complicated. The loan was approved based on your co-signature. If you withdraw that, Brandon would need to refinance immediately and qualify on his own. Given what I see in his file, she pulled up information on her computer screen. His income documentation is inconsistent at best. He likely won't qualify for a loan this size without a co-signer. What happens if he can't refinance? The bank would call the loan due. He'd have 30 days to either pay in full, find alternative financing, or face foreclosure proceedings. The words hung in the air between us. Patricia waited, watching me process this information. Finally, she spoke again. Frederick, I've known you for 15 years. You've never been late on a payment, never defaulted on anything. Whatever's happened, you need to protect yourself. Family is important, but not at the cost of your financial security. I thanked her and left the bank, but I wasn't ready to make any decisions yet. I needed more information. I drove across town to a small coffee shop where I knew I'd find Emily, Stephanie's younger sister. Emily had always been kind to me, even when her sister wasn't. She worked as a teacher and often graded papers at this particular cafe on Wednesday mornings. She was there, red pen in hand, stack of essays beside her coffee cup. When she saw me, her expression shifted to concern. Frederick, is everything okay? I sat down across from her. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Over the next 20 minutes, Emily reluctantly confirmed my worst fears. Shed overheard conversations at family gatherings I wasn't invited to. Stephanie regularly complained about me, calling me clingy and old-fashioned. Brandon had apparently bragged to Stephanie's parents about using the old man's credit to get a house they couldn't otherwise afford. The cruise was planned specifically as a way to finally have family time without the burden of elderly parents. Emily pulled out her phone with shaking hands. I shouldn't show you this, but you deserve to know. She opened a family group chat that I wasn't part of. There, in black and white, was a message from Stephanie from 2 months earlier. We got what we needed from him. Now, we can live our lives without Frederick hovering over us constantly. The co-signing was the best manipulation Brandon ever pulled off. I felt sick. Emily reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm so sorry, Frederick. I should have told you sooner. I just kept hoping Stephanie would realize how wrong this was. I thanked Emily and left the cafe in a daze. Without really planning to, I found myself driving past Brandon's new house. And that's when I saw something that made everything click into place. A man in a suit was hammering a real estate sign into the front lawn. A for sale sign. I pulled over and got out of my car, walking toward the house like a man in a dream. The realtor saw me approaching and smiled broadly, clearly thinking I was a potential buyer. Beautiful property, isn't it? Just listed yesterday. The owners are upgrading to an even larger home. If you're interested, I'd be happy to show you around. These houses in this neighborhood usually go fast. Upgrading. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Oh yes. They're moving to the Riverside Estates development. You know, those new builds on the east side? Much bigger homes there. This one's 4 bedrooms, but they're looking at a 6-bedroom in the $700,000 range. Smart investment, really. This neighborhood's property values have increased 15% in just the last year. I thanked him mechanically and walked back to my car. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Brandon was planning to sell this house, the house ID risked everything to help him buy, and use the equity to purchase an even more expensive property. And Head never intended to tell me. Head probably planned to use my credit again for the next house, keeping me on the hook indefinitely while treating me like an inconvenience. The drive home took 20 minutes, but I don't remember any of it. I walked into my house and sat in Martha's favorite armchair, the blue recliner Shed loved to read in. Her photograph sat on the mantel, her smile frozen in time from our 30th anniversary trip to the Grand Canyon. What would you do, Martha? I asked the empty room. But I already knew. Martha had never tolerated disrespect, not from anyone. Shed taught our son to be honest, hardworking, and kind. Somewhere along the way, those lessons had been forgotten. Or maybe they'd never really taken root. I made a decision then. I wouldn't be a victim. I wouldn't let my kindness be mistaken for weakness anymore. Tomorrow morning, I'd call my attorney. Douglas Reardon had been my attorney for 23 years, handling everything from our wills to the legal paperwork after Martha's death. His office was in a converted Victorian house downtown, with creaky wooden floors and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. I called him first thing Thursday morning and explained I needed an emergency appointment. He heard something in my voice and told me to come in immediately. By 9:30, I was sitting across from his massive oak desk while he reviewed every document I'd brought. The co-signed mortgage, the original loan agreement, printed copies of text messages, and notes from my conversations with Patricia and Emily. He read in silence for 15 minutes, occasionally making small sounds of disapproval. Finally, he set down the papers and looked at me over his reading glasses. Frederick, I'm going to be blunt. Your son has exploited your love and your good credit. What he's done is morally reprehensible, though not technically illegal. What you're considering doing is completely within your legal rights. Explain it to me exactly. What happens when I withdraw as cosigner? Douglas pulled out a legal pad and began writing as he talked. You file formal withdrawal documents with the bank? They're required to notify Brandon immediately. At that point, the bank will review the loan status. Since the loan was approved based primarily on your credit and collateral, they'll require Brandon to either refinance in his own name or pay the loan in full. They'll give him 30 days. And if he can't, then the bank begins foreclosure proceedings. Brandon would be required to vacate the property. The house would be sold, hopefully for enough to cover the outstanding loan balance. If there's a shortfall, Brandon would be responsible for that debt. Your name would be clear. I took a deep breath. Has my son, Douglas. He stopped treating you like a father, Frederick. Has treating you like a bank with no feelings and no rights. You have to ask yourself, are you willing to risk your entire financial future for someone who's already planning his next move without even consulting you? The words settled into my chest like stones. What do I need to do? Douglas spent the next hour preparing withdrawal documents. They were formal, legal, and cold. I signed them at 11:43 in the morning, my hands steady. Douglas filed them electronically with the bank at noon. Then he looked at me seriously. Frederick, you need to prepare for fallout. Brandon is going to be angry. Possibly very angry. Document everything from this point forward. Save every text, every voicemail, every email. Don't meet with him alone. If he shows up at your house, call me immediately. I nodded, but I wasn't finished. There's more I need to do. I spent that afternoon taking additional steps. I called the credit card company and canceled the emergency card I'd given Brandon when he first moved. I'd told him it was for real emergencies only. When I asked for the current balance, the representative told me it was $3,217. Brandon had never mentioned using it. I documented the charges: expensive restaurants, clothing stores, electronics, nothing that qualified as an emergency. Next, I called my financial advisor and updated my will. Brandon had been listed as executor and primary beneficiary. I removed him from both positions and instead established a trust fund specifically for Chloe that Brandon couldn't touch. Emily would be the trustee. My house and remaining assets would be split between several charities Martha and I had supported, with another portion held in trust for Chloe's education. Finally, I went to an office supply store and bought a small notebook. In it, I documented everything: dates, times, conversations, the text message, the phone call, what Emily had told me, the for sale sign. Douglas had told me to keep records. I'd keep excellent records. That night, I slept better than I had in 6 months. Friday passed quietly. Saturday morning, I worked my regular shift at the hardware store. Mr. Carson, the owner, noticed I seemed different. "You look lighter somehow, Fred." "Something good happened," I smiled. "I'm just taking care of myself for once." Saturday afternoon, I was reorganizing my garage when my phone rang. Brandon's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Dad." His voice was panicked, high-pitched. "What did you do?" "The bank called me. They said you withdrew from the mortgage. They're demanding full payment or refinancing within 30 days. What the hell were you thinking?" I kept my voice level, calm. "You told me it was just a business arrangement. I'm simply ending my part of the business. You can't do this." "Well, lose the house. I can't refinance. My income isn't consistent enough. No bank will approve me." "You should have thought about that before you excluded me from your family and planned to sell the house without telling me." There was a long pause. "How did you? Who told you about that?" "The for sale sign in your front yard was hard to miss, Brandon. Were you planning to tell me before or after you used my credit to buy an even bigger house?" I heard him breathing heavily on the other end. Then Stephanie's voice in the background, sharp and angry, though I couldn't make out the words. Brandon came back on the line, and his tone had shifted from panic to rage. "You're a bitter old man who can't stand seeing us succeed. You're sabotaging us because we didn't invite you on one stupid cruise. Mom would be ashamed of you." That hurt, but I kept my voice steady. "Your mother taught me to stand up for myself, Brandon. She taught me that love without respect isn't really love at all. You have 30 days to figure this out. I suggest you use them wisely." "You bastard. You're going to regret this." "Well, sue you. Well, make sure you never see Chloe again. Goodbye, Brandon." I hung up. My coworker, Jake, who'd been helping me organize shelves, looked at me with concern. "You okay, Fred?" I realized I was smiling. "You know what, Jake? I really am." The next week felt like being in the eye of a hurricane. My phone became a weapon of harassment. Text messages poured in at all hours. Brandon called me every name he could think of. Stephanie sent long, rambling texts about how I was a terrible grandfather, a selfish old man who couldn't bear to see young people happy. She accused me of being jealous, bitter, and cruel. I saved every message, just as Douglas had instructed. I didn't respond to any of them. The extended family began calling. Brandon and Stephanie had spread their version of events far and wide. According to them, I was trying to steal their house out of spite because they'd made one innocent comment about the cruise not being age-appropriate. I was portrayed as a vindictive senior citizen having some kind of breakdown after Martha's death. My sister Helen called from Arizona on Tuesday evening. She was furious. Frederick James Morrison. "What the hell are you doing to that boy? He called me in tears. Hez about to lose his house because you're having some kind of tantrum?" I let her vent for 5 minutes. Then, calmly, I asked her to let me send her some documents. I emailed her everything. Screenshots of the text messages, the mortgage papers, Patricia's letter explaining the situation, photos of the for sale sign, and the screenshots Emily had shown me of the family group chat. Helen called back 30 minutes later. Her voice was completely different. "Oh, Freddie. I'm so sorry. I had no idea." That little. She used some language Martha would have disapproved of. How could he treat you like this? How could that girl manipulate him into treating his own father this way? I don't know, Helen. But I'm not going to be a doormat anymore. Damn right you're not. You call me if you need anything. You hear me? Anything at all. The same conversation repeated itself with other family members over the next few days. Some believed Brandon's story. Others, when presented with evidence, switched sides. A few distant cousins stopped speaking to me entirely. I accepted it all with surprising calm. Through Emily, who remained my ally throughout everything, I learned that Brandon was desperately trying to refinance. Head applied to 7 different banks. Every single one had rejected him. His freelance income was too inconsistent, and his debt-to-income ratio was terrible. The credit card debt alone was dragging down his credit score. The cruise departure date arrived 12 days after I'd withdrawn my co-signature. According to Emily, Brandon and Stephanie had canceled their trip, losing all their deposits. That totaled nearly $4,000 they'd never get back. On the 13th day, I received a text from Stephanie. I hope you're happy. You ruined Chloe's vacation. She was so excited about seeing dolphins, and now she's heartbroken. What kind of grandfather does this to a little girl? That one almost broke through my calm exterior. The idea that I'd hurt Chloe, even indirectly, made me physically ill. But I reminded myself that I wasn't the one who'd planned a cruise and then excluded a family member. I wasn't the one who'd manipulated and lied. I was simply refusing to enable bad behavior any longer. 21 days into the 30-day deadline, on a Thursday evening around 8 o'clock, there was pounding on my front door. I looked through the peephole and saw Brandon. He looked terrible. His hair was uncombed, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes wild. I didn't open the door. Part of me, the part that had rocked him to sleep as a baby and taught him to ride a bike and cheered at his high school graduation, wanted to open that door and fix everything. But I thought about Martha. I thought about dignity and self-respect. Brandon, what you're asking me to do is go back to being used. I won't do it. You have 9 days to figure this out. There's nothing to figure out. No bank will give me a loan. We've tried everything. Then you're going to lose the house. And maybe that's what needs to happen. I heard him start to cry. It was awful. But I didn't open the door. After a few minutes, I heard a car door slam and an engine start. Through the window, I watched his car disappear down the street. Mrs. Chen came over, concerned. I assured her everything was fine, just a family disagreement. She squeezed my arm sympathetically and went back inside. But the evening wasn't over. 20 minutes later, there was another knock. This time, when I looked through the peephole, I saw Brandon and Stephanie together. My stomach dropped. I opened the door but kept the screen door latched. Stephanie looked furious. Her face flushed red. Brandon looked defeated. Frederick. Stephanie's voice was cold. This is ridiculous. You're destroying your son's life over a stupid cruise invitation. This isn't about the cruise, Stephanie. This is about respect and honesty. Respect? You want respect? You should be grateful we even let you be part of Chloe's life. You're not entitled to anything from us. The words hung in the air like poison. Brandon put a hand on her arm, trying to stop her, but she shook him off. Let me? Chloe is my granddaughter. You've been using her as leverage from the beginning. Stephanie sneered. Well, you won't be seeing her anymore. We're done with you. After we figure out this mess you created, we're cutting you off completely. Chloe doesn't need a grandfather who abandons his family when they need him most. Brandon finally spoke up. Stephanie, stop. Please. But Stephanie was on a roll. Maybe we should sue you. Yeah. Maybe, well, get a lawyer and sue you for emotional distress or something. You've obviously caused Brandon severe psychological harm with your manipulation. I felt anger rising, but kept my voice level. You need to leave my property now. Oh, we're leaving. But this isn't over. She grabbed Brandon's arm and dragged him back toward their car. As they walked away, I heard her say, clearly intending for me to hear, well, figure something out. Maybe we can sue him, or get him declared mentally incompetent or something. Nobody just throws away their own son like this. I closed the door, locked it, and immediately called Douglas. He answered on the second ring. I told him everything that had happened. Frederick, I'm documenting all of this. The threats about lawsuits, the threats about cutting off access to Chloe, all of it. If they do try to sue, well, have grounds for a countersuit. Threatening to use a child as leverage in a financial dispute is serious business. After we hung up, I sat in Martha's chair and felt the weight of everything pressing down on me. Was I doing the right thing? Was I being cruel? Had I become the bitter old man Stephanie accused me of being? Then I remembered the text message that started all of this. I remembered the for sale sign. I remembered the group chat messages about manipulating me. I remembered every broken promise and dismissive comment. No, I wasn't being cruel. I was being honest. And sometimes honesty is uncomfortable. 2 days before the 30-day deadline, on a Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I approached cautiously, half expecting another confrontation. Instead, through the window, I saw Emily standing on my porch. Chloe was with her, holding Emily's hand. I opened the door immediately. Chloe launched herself at me, wrapping her small arms around my waist. "Grandpa! I missed you!" I hugged her back, fighting tears. Over her head, I looked at Emily. Her face was drawn, exhausted. "Can we come in? We need to talk." I ushered them inside. Chloe immediately went to the toy basket I kept for her visits, pulling out the puzzle we'd been working on last time. Emily and I went to the kitchen, where I made coffee and hot chocolate. "I have Chloe for the week," Emily began. "Brandon and Stephanie are. They're in crisis mode. They asked me to take her because they said they needed to focus on the house situation without distractions." I felt anger flash through me. Chloe wasn't a distraction. She was a little girl who needed her parents, Emily continued, her voice dropping. "But there's more, Frederick. And you need to know." She pulled out a folder from her large purse. "I found these in Stephanie's car when I was cleaning out fast food wrappers. She's been living in her car part-time, sleeping there between shifts because, well, you'll understand in a minute." She spread documents across my kitchen table. My hands shook as I read through them. Brandon and Stephanie had taken out a second mortgage on the house without my knowledge. $50,000, borrowed 3 months ago. The paperwork had been done through a predatory lender with an interest rate of 11%. But what made my blood run cold was seeing signatures that purported to be mine on several of the documents. "This is fraud," I said quietly. "They forged my signature." "I know." Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "I took pictures of everything before I brought you the originals. Frederick, there's more." She pulled out her phone and showed me bank statements. The $50,000 had been spent in less than 2 months. $4,000 on the cruise deposits, $8,000 on furniture, $12,000 on 2 new cars, down payments, $6,000 on designer clothes and accessories. The rest scattered across restaurants, bars, and shopping sprees. "They're drowning," Emily said. "They've been living like they have money they don't have. And there's something else." She pulled up text messages on her phone. "Stephanie's been having an affair with her boss at the dental office. Dr. Marcus Trent. She's planning to divorce Brandon as soon as they get through this financial situation." Those are her exact words. She told me last week that once they solve the old man problem and stabilize financially, she's leaving Brandon because she can't stand being poor. I sat back in my chair, processing everything. The fraud, the affair, the complete lack of remorse or responsibility. Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so ashamed of my sister. Our parents raised us better than this. I've watched her become someone I don't even recognize. And Brandon, he's not innocent either. But she's been manipulating him too, making him believe that success means having expensive things and appearing wealthy. Why are you telling me all this, Emily?" "Because it's the right thing to do. And because..." She glanced toward the living room where Chloe was humming to herself while working on her puzzle. "Because that little girl needs at least one adult in her life who has integrity. Her parents are a mess. You're the only stable person she has, and they're trying to take you away from her." I got up and looked at Chloe through the doorway. She was so focused on her puzzle, so innocent. She had no idea her parents' world was falling apart. "What do you need from me?" I asked Emily. "Just promise me that whatever happens with Brandon and Stephanie, you won't abandon Chloe. She loves you so much. She talks about you all the time. You're her favorite person." I felt my throat tighten. "I promise. No matter what happens, I'll always be there for her." Emily hugged me, something she'd never done before. "Thank you. I'm going to make sure you have legal access to her, whatever it takes." After they left that evening, Chloe had kissed my cheek and made me promise to take her to the library next weekend. I'd agreed, not knowing if that promise was one I could keep. But I took the documents Emily had given me, and I called Douglas at home. Something I'd never done before. He answered, concerned by the unusual call. "Douglas, we need to meet first thing Monday morning. I have evidence of mortgage fraud." The next morning, Sunday, while I was reading the newspaper, my phone rang. It was a certified letter notification. I drove to the post office Monday morning, when it opened and signed for the envelope. Inside was a lawsuit. Brandon, through an attorney I'd never heard of, was suing me for emotional distress and financial sabotage. The lawsuit claimed my withdrawal from the mortgage was motivated by malice and had caused irreparable harm to his mental health and financial stability. They were seeking $100,000 in damages. I stared at the papers in disbelief. Then, I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The sheer audacity of it was almost impressive. I drove straight to Douglas' office. When he read the lawsuit, he smiled. Actually, smiled. "Frederick, this is the best thing that could have happened. How is being sued by my own son a good thing? Because now everything becomes part of the legal record. Has opened the door for us to introduce all the evidence of fraud, manipulation, and exploitation. The forged signatures on the second mortgage alone could result in criminal charges. By suing you, he's essentially handed us a loaded gun." Douglas began drafting documents immediately. By noon, Head filed a motion to dismiss Brandon's lawsuit. By 3 o'clock, Head filed a countersuit for fraud, elder financial abuse, and emotional distress. The countersuit demanded repayment of the credit card debt, all legal fees, and $50,000 in damages. Douglas also reported the mortgage fraud to the bank and to local law enforcement. "This is going to get significantly worse for them before it gets better," he warned me. I nodded. I understood. But I also knew I was done being the victim in this situation. The 30-day deadline came and went. Brandon had failed to refinance. On day 31, the bank began formal foreclosure proceedings. Brandon and Stephanie received notice that they had 60 days to vacate the property. But the foreclosure was the least of their problems. When the bank reviewed the loan file during the foreclosure process, they discovered the fraudulent second mortgage. Their fraud investigation team found the forged signatures and reported it to law enforcement. 3 days later, police investigators contacted me as a potential victim of identity theft and fraud. I cooperated fully, providing every document Douglas and I had compiled. The investigators were thorough and professional. They explained that forging someone's signature on mortgage documents was a serious felony. A week after my interview with police, Stephanie was brought in for questioning. According to Emily, who heard about it from her parents, Stephanie immediately threw Brandon under the bus. She claimed Shed had no knowledge of the forged documents. She said Brandon had handled all the paperwork. She painted herself as an innocent bystander who'd been deceived by her husband. The investigators didn't buy it. Both sets of signatures were forged, and the handwriting analysis showed that different people had forged them. They'd both participated in the fraud. Brandon was arrested on a Thursday morning. The local newspaper covered it because fraud cases involving that much money were unusual in our small Ohio town. The headline read, "Local man arrested for mortgage fraud." My name was mentioned as the victim, though they'd had the courtesy to refer to me only as a family member. Brandon spent 2 nights in county jail before posting bail. Stephanie's parents, Carol and Gerald, paid the $10,000 bail bond. When he was released, he looked like a broken man. Emily sent me a picture, not out of cruelty, but so I'd know what was happening. Brandon had aged 10 years in a week. The story spread through our small community like wildfire. I worked at Carson's hardware store that Saturday, and customers who'd known me for years approached me with sympathy. Mr. Carson himself pulled me aside. "Fred, take some paid leave. Deal with this situation. Well, be fine here. I don't need." "Yes, you do. You've been loyal to this store for 5 years. You show up on time. You work hard. You're kind to customers. Now let us be loyal to you. Take 2 weeks. Paid." That's not a request. I was moved by his kindness. I accepted. Meanwhile, Stephanie filed for divorce. She moved out of the house they were losing and went back to her parents' home, taking Chloe with her. Brandon was left alone in the house Head destroyed his relationship with me to obtain, waiting for the inevitable eviction. He continued trying to contact me. Voicemails alternated between rage and sobbing apologies. I saved them all, but didn't respond. Douglas had advised me not to have any contact until the legal matters were resolved. 3 weeks after Brandon's arrest, on a Tuesday evening around 9 o'clock, there was pounding on my door again. This time, I called the police before answering. Through the peephole, I saw Brandon. He was clearly drunk, stumbling, shouting. Dad! I know you're in there. We need to talk. You can't ignore me forever. Neighbors were coming out again. I spoke through the door, my voice calm. Brandon, you need to leave. I've called the police. The police? You called the cops on your own son? What kind of father are you? The kind who won't be abused anymore. Abused? I'm the one being abused. You destroyed my life. You took everything from me. The house, my marriage, my reputation. Everyone in this town thinks I'm a criminal. I opened the door but kept the screen door locked between us. You are a criminal, Brandon. You forged my signature on legal documents. You committed fraud. You used me and threw me away. You did this to yourself. His face contorted with rage and pain. I'm your son. You're supposed to forgive me no matter what. You're supposed to love me. I do love you. But love doesn't mean accepting abuse. I loved you enough to help you when you asked. You loved me so little that you tried to exploit me. Police sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Brandon heard them and stumbled backward. This isn't over. You haven't heard the last of this. 2 patrol cars pulled up. Officers I recognized, Jake Morrison and Sarah Chen, approached. They'd been in the hardware store dozens of times. Jake spoke to Brandon while Sarah came to check on me. You okay, Mr. Morrison? I'm fine. Hes intoxicated. I just want him removed from my property. Jake talked to Brandon for several minutes, then walked him to his car. They didn't arrest him, just made him call someone to pick him up. Stephanie's father, Gerald, arrived 20 minutes later. The look he gave Brandon was one of pure disgust. After everyone left, my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, brought me tea. That boy never deserved you, she said simply. Everyone in this neighborhood knows you're a good man. The next day, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Carol, Stephanie's mother. She was crying. Frederick, I'm so sorry. We had no idea what they'd done to you. We believed Brandon's version of events, and we were wrong. So wrong. I listened as she explained. After the arrest and the divorce filing, the truth had come tumbling out. Stephanie had admitted to the affair. Brandon had admitted to the fraud. Carol and Gerald had learned about the text message, the cruise exclusion, the manipulation, everything. We're ashamed of our daughter, Carol said. We raised her better than this, and we're heartbroken over what's happening to Chloe in all of this. That little girl is suffering because of her parents' choices. How is Chloe? I asked, my heart aching. She's confused. She keeps asking to see you. Stephanie barely spends time with her. She's too busy with her new boyfriend. Emily has been the primary caregiver, really. Carol asked if I'd be willing to meet with her and Gerald to discuss Chloe's future. I agreed immediately. We met 2 days later at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. Emily was there too. Carol and Gerald looked exhausted. They explained that Stephanie was spiraling, spending money they didn't have, ignoring Chloe, planning a future with Dr. Trent that seemed based entirely on his income. We want to do what's right for Chloe, Gerald said. Emily has agreed to seek legal guardianship. Well, support her financially. But Chloe needs stability. She needs people in her life who actually care about her, not about money or status. Emily spoke up. I want you to have legal visitation rights, Frederick. I want it in writing that you're part of Chloe's life. She needs you. I felt tears sting my eyes. I'd like that very much. We spent the next hour working out details. Emily would file for guardianship. Both sets of grandparents would support her petition. I would have generous visitation rights written into the custody arrangement. As we were leaving, Gerald pulled me aside. Frederick, what you did took courage. You stood up for yourself when no one else would. That's not cruelty. That's self-respect. I'm sorry it took us so long to see it. I just wanted to be treated like I mattered. I said quietly, you do matter, and we're going to make sure Chloe knows that. 6 months passed. The Ohio winter gave way to spring, and everything changed. Brandon's legal case was resolved through a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to mortgage fraud and received 3 years of probation, 400 hours of community service, and mandatory financial counseling. He had to pay restitution to the bank for their investigation costs. His felony conviction would follow him for the rest of his life, affecting his employment opportunities and his ability to get credit. Stephanie's divorce was finalized in April. She received minimal custody of Chloe, just every other weekend, because the judge considered her lifestyle unstable. Her relationship with Dr. Trent lasted exactly 2 months before he moved on to someone else. Shed quit her job at the dental office to avoid the awkwardness and was now working at a different practice for less pay. Emily was granted full legal guardianship of Chloe. The judge praised her for putting her niece's needs first. Carol and Gerald provided financial support, and I was given court-ordered visitation rights, the same rights I would have had if Emily were Chloe's biological parent. Brandon lost the house to foreclosure, as expected. He moved into a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. He was working at a regular office job now, processing insurance claims for $42,000 a year. No more freelancing. No more dreams of an upscale lifestyle. Just reality. Had been sober for 4 months, attending AA meetings 3 times a week, as part of his probation requirements. For the first 4 months after everything fell apart, I didn't hear from Brandon at all. I saw Chloe every Tuesday and Thursday evening for dinner, and we had Grandpa Saturdays, where we'd go to the library, or the park, or work in my garden. She was thriving with Emily, her grades improving, her smile returning. She still asked about her dad sometimes. I never spoke badly about Brandon to her. It'd just say that her daddy was working on being better and that these things took time. One Saturday in early October, I was raking leaves in my front yard, enjoying the crisp autumn air. The maple tree that Martha had planted 30 years ago was dropping its brilliant red leaves across the lawn. I heard a car pull up but didn't look until someone spoke. "Hi, Dad." I turned. Brandon stood at the edge of my property, his hands in his pockets. He looked different. Thinner, yes, but also more humble. His eyes were clear. He wasn't drunk or angry. He just looked tired and sad. "Brandon, I know I don't have any right to be here. If you want me to leave, I will. But I was hoping we could talk, just for a few minutes." I looked at him for a long moment, then gestured to the porch steps. "All right." We sat, leaving a few feet of space between us. For a minute, neither of us spoke. The sound of leaves rustling in the wind filled the silence. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Brandon began. "I don't even know if I deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know that I understand now what I did to you." He explained that his court-mandated counseling had forced him to confront things he'd been avoiding for years. His therapist had helped him see how he'd bought into a definition of success that was all about appearance and possessions. Stephanie had fed into that, always wanting more, never satisfied with what they had. But Brandon admitted that had enabled her because he was insecure, afraid that without those external markers of success, he wasn't enough. "I used your love as a tool," he said, his voice cracking. "When you agreed to co-sign, I didn't think about what I was asking you to risk. I just thought about getting what I wanted. And when I got it, I didn't even appreciate it. I just wanted more." He talked about the therapy sessions where he'd been forced to read his own text messages out loud. Hearing myself say, "You're too old to my own father." "Dad, I was ashamed. I am ashamed." He explained that losing everything, the house and Stephanie, and his reputation, had been devastating. But it had also been necessary. I was living a lie. I was pretending to be someone I wasn't, with money I didn't have, treating people I loved like they were inconvenient. The counseling helped me see that who I'd become wasn't who I wanted to be. I listened without interrupting. When he finished, I took a breath and shared my own truth. "When your mother died, Brandon, I felt lost. I'd spent 41 years with my best friend, and then she was gone. You were all I had left of her. When you asked for help with the mortgage, I didn't hesitate, because I wanted to feel needed. I wanted to feel like I still had a family, a purpose. When you excluded me from that cruise, it wasn't just about the vacation. It was about realizing that you'd used me. That text message made me feel like I was disposable, like I only mattered when I could give you something you wanted. I didn't withdraw from the mortgage for revenge. I did it because I realized I'd been teaching you how to treat me. By accepting less than I deserved, I was telling you it was okay to treat me that way. I had to respect myself enough to say no." Brandon was crying now, silent tears running down his face. "I know, and you were right to do it. If you hadn't, I never would have hit bottom. I never would have been forced to look at myself and realize I'd become someone terrible. You're not terrible, Brandon. You made terrible choices. There's a difference." We sat in silence again. Finally, I spoke. "You're not the same person who sent that text message. I can see that. But trust has to be rebuilt slowly. I'm willing to see where this goes. But there have to be boundaries." Brandon nodded eagerly. "Anything. Whatever boundaries you need. No more financial entanglements. You and I will never co-sign anything or lend each other money again. Second, my relationship with Chloe is protected legally now, and it stays that way. Third, you respect my time and my choices. If I say no to something, that's the end of the discussion. I agree to all of that. Thank you, Dad. Thank you for not giving up on me completely. We didn't hug that day, but we shook hands. It felt like a beginning. Over the following months, Brandon proved he meant what he said. He started attending family dinners at Emily's house when I was there. He never asked for money. He showed up for Chloe's school concerts and soccer games. He was respectful, humble, and consistent. He went to individual family members and apologized for lying about me. He told them the truth about what had done and why it'd been right to protect myself. Some family members forgave him. Others didn't. He accepted both responses with grace. He apologized to Patricia at the bank. He apologized to Mr. Carson at the hardware store for bringing drama into my workplace. He even apologized to Emily for putting her in the middle of everything. One cold December evening, about 14 months after the text message that changed everything, Chloe had her 8th birthday party at Emily's house. The whole family was there. Emily, Carol, Gerald, me, and yes, Brandon. Stephanie wasn't invited. Her choice. Shed sent a birthday card with $20 inside and hadn't called. Chloe ran to me with a handmade card, construction paper covered with glitter and stickers. Inside, in her careful 3rd-grade handwriting, Shed written, "To the best grandpa in the world. Thank you for always being there. I love you more than all the stars." I felt my throat tighten. I pulled her into a hug and told her I loved her too. Later, as the party wound down and kids ran around hyped up on cake and ice cream, Brandon approached me quietly. "Can I show you something?" He pulled out his phone and showed me a picture of a small house. It was modest, a simple ranch style, with a small front yard, nothing fancy. I just signed a lease to own agreement. It's nothing like the other house. Just 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, 900 square feet. But it's mine. No co-signers. I qualified for the lease on my own, with my steady job and my improving credit. His voice carried a note of genuine pride, not arrogance. "I wanted you to see that I learned something. I'm living within my means, building my credit myself, doing things the right way this time." I looked at the picture and felt something warm spread through my chest. "I'm proud of you, son. Really proud." Brandon smiled, and for the first time in years, it reached his eyes. "There's a guest room. Small, but comfortable. I was hoping, when you're ready, maybe you'd come visit sometime. No pressure. Just, when you're comfortable." I considered it. "I'd like that. In a few months. Maybe. Let's keep taking this slowly. Slowly is good. Slowly is smart." As the party ended and I drove home through the December darkness, lights twinkling in neighbors' windows, I reflected on everything that had happened. I thought about that text message, those 7 words that had shattered my world. "You're too old. This is just for the 3 of us." I thought about the pain, the betrayal, the awful months that followed. I thought about the choice I'd made to stand up for myself. Some people might say it'd been harsh. Some might think a parent should forgive anything, accept anything, tolerate anything. But I'd learned something profound through this experience. Love without respect isn't really love at all. It's exploitation wearing a mask. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's self-respect. It's teaching people how you deserve to be treated. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their actions. Not because you want them to suffer, but because you know they'll never grow if you keep protecting them from reality. Real family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about showing up, being honest, treating each other with dignity, and choosing to be present in each other's lives. Being too old was never the real issue. Being taken for granted was. I arrived home and sat in Martha's chair, her photograph smiling at me from the mantel. "I think you'd be proud, Martha. I finally learned that lesson you kept trying to teach me." I looked at Chloe's birthday card, propped on the table where I could see it. I thought about Emily's kindness, Carol and Gerald's integrity, Brandon's slow but genuine transformation. The journey had been painful, but it had led somewhere real, somewhere honest, somewhere healthy. For the first time since Martha died, I felt truly at peace. I'd stood up for myself. I'd protected my dignity. I'd maintained my relationship with Chloe. And I'd created space for Brandon to become a better person. I received a text message that evening. It was from Brandon. "Thank you for not giving up on me. even when you had every reason to. See you Sunday for dinner. I typed back, "I'll be there. I'll bring dessert." I set down my phone and smiled. The wound wasn't fully healed. Trust was still being rebuilt. But we were moving in the right direction. And Eid learned the most important lesson of my 68 years. Loving yourself enough to demand respect doesn't make you selfish. It makes you whole. And wholeness is the greatest gift you can give to the people who truly love you. Sometimes, standing up for yourself feels like the hardest thing in the world. But I learned it's also the most necessary. Because when you respect yourself, you teach others how to respect you too. And that's when real relationships, built on honesty and mutual care, can finally begin to grow. The story could have ended in permanent estrangement. It could have ended in bitterness on both sides. Instead, it ended with boundaries, with growth, with slow reconciliation, and with a family that, while different than before, was finally built on truth. That's the life lesson I want to pass on. Boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges to healthier relationships. Standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's self-preservation. And sometimes love means letting someone fall so they can learn to stand on their own. Martha would have approved, and that thought, more than anything else, gave me peace. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where someone you loved took advantage of your kindness? How did you handle it? Did you set boundaries? Or did you keep giving until there was nothing left? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like. It helps others find these stories and realize they're not alone in facing difficult family dynamics. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people, facing real challenges, and finding the courage to choose themselves. And please share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to set boundaries, even with family. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it gave you something to think about, and maybe even the courage to stand up for yourself if you need to. Remember, you matter, your feelings matter, and you deserve to be treated with respect, no matter who the other person is. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply say no.